So inshallah, take advantage of that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. And tomorrow is Monday. So Mondays and Thursdays, you can have double intention. You could be making up your days of fasting. That would count. You could also be doing the days of Shawwal, and that would count as well. And you can basically use the Mondays and Thursdays as 2 days of the week, where the Prophet ﷺ used to fast as well. But the fasting of Ramadan, that are missed days, and the voluntary fasting of Shawwal cannot be combined together. These cannot be combined, but you can choose to fast your makeup days on Mondays and Thursdays, and inshallah we hope to get the reward for that. But of course, to make up the days of fasting of Ramadan, its reward is its own reward, and it is the highest reward, and it is nothing voluntary is comparable to the obligatory fast, inshallah. So today we discuss ayah number 89 of Surah Al-Ma'idah onwards, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان. Allah will not call you to account for your thoughtless oaths, but He will hold you accountable for deliberate oaths. So, some brothers, every sentence begins with Wallahi, right? Wallahi, brother, Wallahi. And for some people, they don't, in some cultures, Wallahi never means Wallahi. Wallahi just means it's like a style of speaking, and they don't necessarily mean, I swear by Allah that I will do this, or I will see you tomorrow at this time, or whatever. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He will not hold you to account for your thoughtless oaths. But وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا عَقَّدْتُمُ الْأَيْمَانِ. But He will hold you accountable for your deliberate oaths. When you intended to say, brother, I promise that I will do this. I swear by Allah, I will do this. In this case, this is a oath that needs to be fulfilled. If it is not fulfilled, if it is broken, فَكَفَّارَتُهُ إِطْعَامُ عَشَرَةِ مَسَاكِينَ مِنْ أَوْسَطِ مَا تُطْعِمُونَ أَهْلِيكُمْ أَوْ كِسْوَتُهُمْ أَوْ تَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ. The penalty for a broken oath is to feed 10 poor people from what you normally feed your own family. أَوْ كِسْوَتُهُمْ, or to clothe them, 10 poor people, or to free a slave, أو تحرير رقبة. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ, but if none of this is affordable, فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ, then you must fast 3 days. So option A is A1, A2, A3. You can choose any one. There is no hierarchy in that. Feed 10 people, feed 10 poor people. If you were to give iftar in the masjid in Ramadan, would that count for feeding 10 poor people? Not in Cedar Park. Not in not in Leander, with limited attendance, right? But yeah, so the point that I'm trying to make is that some people, they feed people in Ramadan, and they might be thinking that this is feeding poor people, but it depends who you're feeding. Okay, so if you, for example, if you feed 10 people in Nuwais's masjid, much higher chance, because a lot of these are graduate students with very small stipends, living hand to mouth, that might count. Okay, more masajid where the population is more impoverished, there it might count. But to just feed, mashallah, nice 10 millionaire friends, that will not count towards the penalty of the broken oath, or other cases where you have to feed poor people or clothe them or to free a slave. Then now if a person cannot do option A, in which you have 3 options that are all equal to each other, then you have option B, which is to fast 3 days. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ. But if none of this is affordable, then you must fast 3 days. ذَلِكَ كَفَّارَةُ أَيْمَانِكُمْ إِذَا حَلَفْتُمْ وَاحْفَظُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ. This is the penalty for breaking your oaths, so be mindful of your oaths. And the recommended way is to not make frequent oaths. Don't swear a lot. Swear as in like I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no need for a person to place a restriction on themselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not placed on them. So if you say, brother, I will give this to you within 3 days, say inshallah. In this case, if you don't make it in 3 days, then you're not obligated. It's not a promise that you are supposed to try to intend to keep your word. But if you said inshallah, then basically that's a disclaimer that if I intend to say it, do it. But if Allah does not intend for me to do it, then that's Allah's will. Okay, but also inshallah should not be used as a way to deceive people as well. It should not be that I'm saying, yes, brother, inshallah, I will pay you within 24 hours. And in your mind, you have no intention of paying at all. That's using inshallah for deception. But it should be that I will pay you, that's my intention, inshallah, if Allah's intention also, permits my intention to be completed, then it will happen. Because sometimes here you're planning to do this, but some major emergency comes and things happen. So that's in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So always say inshallah, and don't put yourself into these type of limits that, okay, I will do this by this time, because that could consider your word broken. And then on top of that, if you say, I make an oath, I swear by Allah, then in this case, you would have to pay the penalty. If you don't say, I swear by Allah, but if you just give your word, then that is considered a promise, and a promise should not be broken. And Allah says that again and again in the Qur'an, that those people who fulfill their promises, there's a promise to Allah and there's a promise to people, and part of being truthful is that we fulfill our words. Even sometimes we say something that we didn't necessarily really mean it seriously, but it came out of our mouth. In this case, we should try to fulfill it. We should try to fulfill it, or we should get permission from the other person, like get relief from the person who is the recipient of that. So if a person says, it says to your employee that, look, I'll give you a raise next year. And then next year comes and the business is going down. So the person can say that, look, I did promise you this, but look, honestly speaking, what's going on in the market. The economy is down. There's a war going on. The gas prices are high. And, I'm even thinking whether I need to keep you employed or not. So I really don't have the ability to give you a raise. I can't give myself a raise. So whatever it is, you need to work with that person. And that person needs to work with you, or you need to fulfill the word that you gave them. Otherwise, basically, you could fall into a type of lying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. This is how Allah makes things clear to you, so perhaps you will be grateful. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. O believers, intoxicants, gambling, idols, and drawing lots for decisions are all evil of shaitan's handiwork. So shun them so you may be successful. So khamr, intoxicants. Intoxicants could be of any form. Okay? There's alcohol. What else are forms of intoxicants? Drugs. What about if the drug is prescribed by your doctor? It's okay? It depends. It depends on what? It depends the way you're using it, right? So the majority of drug addiction actually begins from doctors' prescriptions. And there are some doctors that are called pill factories, where basically you go there and you just tell them, and they give you prescription for extremely addictive medications that takes away your pain for a short while, but it brings you back, and you need more and you need more, and you have to keep going, and the entire industry makes a lot of money from that. So even if you have a prescription for it, if it has a type of this effect, intoxicating effect, where you get drowsy, you get sleepy, you are high on it, in those cases, it really, really should be avoided as much as possible. It should only be where that's the only choice, where usually like maybe towards the end of life or things of this sort, and a person should always try. Even right now at home, most of the drug addictions, they start off from people having surgery, like knee surgery, this surgery, that surgery, where they have a lot of pain, and then they take this medication, and then they get, and there's so many lawsuits that have happened that have been settled for billions of dollars in some cases, where the companies accepted that, yes, we knew that our pills were addictive. So if a person knows this, Xanax, for example, has a huge market outside in the street because it's a drug that creates a high. So anything of any type, whether it's a powder form, a solid form, liquid form, or gas form, okay, there are things that you can smoke, the things that you can inhale, or any form of that. Also, even if the drug or the intoxicant is legal according to the law. For example, in many places marijuana is legal. It is still haram. This whole idea of medical marijuana, okay? Is medical marijuana halal? Not anymore. Why? Because there are proven benefits of marijuana, the plant. However, CBD is the part which gives you a lot of pain relief and a lot of other benefits without the intoxicating effect. And CBD has been extracted and separated from THC, which is the intoxicating part of the plant. So now there's no excuse for anybody to even think about. One brother came to me some time back. He says that, marijuana helps my certain, I don't want to mention that disease because everybody's going to be like, okay, I have that too. So he says, it helps me in maintaining such and such. And at that time, CBD was not available like it is now. But now, like every second shop is CBD. But we have to make sure that we stay away from all forms of intoxicants. Then gambling, which is, again, games of chance. And there are lots of forms of gambling. All of them are prohibited. So what shaitan does, Allah tells us in the Qur'an that shaitan beautifies your actions. Shaitan beautifies your actions. So some of these evil things, they will be presented in a beautiful way. For example, what do you think? Lottery. Okay? It doesn't feel like you're sitting on a table and playing cards and alcohol is being drunk and you're playing gambling. You're just buying milk and you pay $2 extra to get a lottery ticket. Okay? That is gambling. What else? Beautiful slot machines, right? Some people say, I'm not gambling. I'm just playing a game. I'm just having fun. Okay? The thing is, you're not supposed to be supporting that. You're not supposed to be supporting that. Also, in some states, they use money, profits from lottery, to support educational programs. Like in Georgia, pre-K was funded through the profits of the Georgia State Lottery. Okay? So basically, they're like, well, we're supporting something good. No, you're not supporting something good. What else? Sports betting, okay? Sports betting, horse betting, all of these type of things, Also forms of gambling. What else? Playing cards is not gambling in itself if there's no money involved. Now, playing cards has its own issues that have been mentioned. Some of the scholars say that playing cards is haram because they are associated with gambling. Some of them have said that, well, if they are gambling, then they are haram. Other than that, it may not be haram. That's a different discussion. But gambling is what we're talking about here. If playing cards has gambling, then definitely it will be haram. What else? Yes. Cigarettes, cigar, hookah, they are not part of intoxicants or gambling, but they are parts of another class of prohibitions, which are things that are harmful to you. Okay, you're not supposed to do anything that you know is harming you. And you can just see the lungs of people who smoke, and that will tell you what it's doing to you. What was that? I wouldn't say all hedge funds, but when investment, by the way, investment can be gambling. How is it gambling or how is it investment? There are some forms where you basically blindly put your money. In other cases, you actually go and you study the case, you study the market, you understand. And some of the most successful investors of our time, they say, the best investment is in that which you understand very well. If you understand cars, for you, investing in cars or car companies is not going to be gambling because you know what you're doing or you have an idea. As opposed to somebody who has no idea, he sees other people making money, so he says, let me put my money over there too. It may not necessarily be haram in terms of halal and haram, but it will be like gambling for that person because he has no idea where he's putting his money. It's a chance for him, okay? But that's not necessarily in this particular case that type of gambling. Penny stocks are not necessarily haram if you understand what you're doing. I mean, if instead of investing dollars or thousands of dollars, you're investing pennies. Okay. If you don't know anything, the game of chance is basically a game of chance. You throw in money hoping that you're going to win. Okay. But investment generally is halal. Investment generally is halal, and I don't want this issue to get confused with idea of investing. Okay, let's move away from that. I want us to come to something even more beautiful, attractive, simple, child and family friendly forms of gambling. What is that? The claw. Okay, you go to these stores and you put in $5. And that claw is going to go, and it's the weakest claw in the world. Okay? And it goes, and it just like kind of closes, and then it just drops it on the way, even if it manages to pick something up. But that is a form of gambling. Okay? Also, if you go to some of these parks, and they have these things where they have games like, okay, you throw arrows, and you pop this many balloons, and you win this thing. All of these are basically where there's no guarantee of what you're getting for the money that you're paying. You could end up just having the right to throw arrows, or you could walk away with a $20 prize. That is a form of gambling because in Islam, any transaction, for it to be halal, there needs to be some form of equity in there. Equity as in, you are giving something, you're getting something in return of similar, equal value. If there is no guarantee of what you're getting, okay, I don't want people to confuse this to business. Okay, business is something else where you are investing your money and there are a number of variables, you're trying hard to make it work. But just immediate game of chance is where it's considered gambling. And again, shaitan, Allah tells us, shaitan beautifies your actions. What they do is that they don't call gambling gambling, they call it gaming. Okay? And I know this very well because I lived and served as imam for 4 years in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which is, which was used to be called the Vegas of the East. And it's a small 3-mile city, has 15 casinos in it. And the whole economy, it runs on the masjid. Oh, sorry, even the masjid runs on donations of people who work in the casinos or who work in industries which are basically supported by casinos. The restaurants run through the casinos. The taxi drivers, they make money through the casino traffic. Basically, everything kind of runs through that. Yes. That's a deeper question, but that is a legitimate separation between them, which is a game of skill versus a game of chance. And there are certain rules that the scholars have written, which is that, let's say that you're going to be racing, and the winner gets such and such prize. So there are certain rules that the scholars have devised, or they have suggested that if you do this, then it would be considered halal. If you don't do that, then it would be considered haram. Anyways, let's move on. Yes. If you? Yeah. 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 So, if you go to that person and you say, you know what, I don't want a prize. Can I just shoot these balls? Most of the times they'll say, yeah, go ahead and shoot. So here's a problem with just leaving the prize. If you just leave the prize, you still participated in that model. But you could say, okay, you know what, you want $10 for me to play, and if I win, I get the prize. You can tell them, hey, how about I pay $2 and you just let me play? I don't care about the prize. Even if I get all of them, I don't want the prize at all. So you have to clarify further. And you can do that. And most of those people, they are there to make money from the promise of that prize or the trick of that prize. So if you have that whole thing where if I do this, this happens, that's where it gets complicated. Also, the casinos, by the way, many people, they say, I go to the casino and I play the slot machine not to win anything. I'm just having fun. The thing is that if everybody does that, that entire business model still exists. So personally, if I wanted to do that, I would say, hey, I'm not gonna. You want $10 to play the game and the chance to win? How about either you just let me play for free, or if sometimes there's like a bullet that's gonna be used up, say I'll just pay you $2, the cost of your bullets. Let me play. And a lot of times they'll be like, okay, but that's not going to support their business model. Wallahu alam. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Paying more. Okay, I was hoping to not get into insurance today. Okay, brother Aftab, I'll come back to this, yes. Yeah, yes. So the easy thing about raffle draw is that if it's not purchase necessary, no purchase necessary, meaning it's free entry into this, there's no problem in that. It's when you're giving something and you're not getting anything in return, for sure. That is when it is not allowed. Okay, is that a hand up there? I figured there must be some hands up there too. Yes. A what? A dice? So the issue of cards, dice, chess, backgammon, there are some hadith on these, but the scholars differ as to whether if you play them just for fun without any money, without any gambling involved, are they allowed in that case or not? Some conservative scholars will say the hadith says it's completely forbidden, don't do it. Some more, you could say, relaxed opinions on that matter would be that, well, the hadith are in the context that these things are used in gambling, and that's what the Prophet meant. He didn't give you all the details that if you're playing dice and you're betting this much money, then it's haram. But basically, that's what people used to do. So he said, if you're playing dice, it's haram. So that's a little bit more research is needed. Is if you can avoid it, by all means do so. Now, the issue of insurance, right? There are lots of different forms of insurances, and among them is, for example, travel insurance. Among them is when you buy a TV, they say pay $2 or $12 more and have your TV protected for 1 extra year, extended warranties, car maintenance, all of these type of things. The thing is that there is what's called gharar in there, ambiguity, which is what you're paying and what you're getting in return. So the best thing is for all of us to avoid as many of these things as possible. The scholars, they have said 3 things. The scholars I can say in America, especially some of the Amja Fatawa, they'll say that property insurance, medical insurance, and car insurance. These 3 things, in some cases, they are required. So, for example, car insurance. And in other cases, these are losses that an average person cannot normally cover from their pocket if they were to be hit by a big loss. These will be beyond the ability of a person. So these 3 things they say that you can do, you can take, but don't go excessive in that. Try to keep it as little as possible, where you can kind of protect yourself, but not necessarily go all crazy, because the insurance industry is a hundreds of billions of dollars of profit it makes from all the promises that it makes to you, but they end up basically winning on those bets. Now, other than these, how do you handle your TV, your phone, your travel tickets, and things of this sort, your car maintenance? A halal and practical way of doing that is that if we have what's called an emergency fund, okay? The money that you might be paying in all of these different types of insurances, if everyone has a practice of putting some money to the side every month, you will be able to take care of most such emergencies. And from a financial counseling perspective, you're supposed to have 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund, where if your TV breaks all of a sudden, of course, you will not be able to sleep and survive without a TV. So you need an immediately new TV. So you will be able to dip into your emergency fund. If your travel plans suddenly change and you lost your money and you're not within a refund policy, you can get basically that emergency fund will kind of help you out there. So things of this sort, they should be avoided, and a person should try their best to avoid doubtful transactions, let alone haram transactions. A person should do their best and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, I'm taking a risk. Okay, it will come later. This is an ayah that comes. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لَا يَسْتَوِي الْخَبِيثُ وَالطَّيِّبُ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Say, O Prophet, good and evil are not equal, though you may be dazzled by the abundance of evil. People will say, everybody does it. Every time you buy something, they offer you to, hey, just get this protection plan. Even though it dazzles you, it is not the same. It is not equal to a good transaction. A halal and haram cannot be equal. So a person should try their best to, instead of protecting yourself from a haram way, protect yourself from a halal way, which is have some savings. Also, be mindful with your spending. Most people who fall into these type of things, they also tend to be very wasteful, and as a result, they're living on the edge. So any calamity is enough to make them drown, and then they need to basically, take these type of other measures to try to protect themselves. Yes. The game of skills are halal. Games of skill are halal, and there is no problem even if you win a prize. There is no scholar that says a game of skill is haram. It is the game of chance. The line, the definition between them is sometimes a little bit vague, and that is not an issue of fiqh. That's an issue of defining that line and what those games are. But now let's look at the ayah that you mentioned. Let's move on. He says that these, and drawing lots for decisions. Let me just mention this. What's a drawing lot for decisions? A person says, man, should I buy this car or should I buy this car? Should I marry this person or should I marry this person? Should I take this job or should I take this job? So what the Arabs would do is that they would basically, what we would call a coin toss, right? They would do they had these arrows and they would do some certain thing with it. And they had a way that if it came out this way, I'll go with this. And they felt that this coin toss, in our language, God is guiding this coin toss. That's what they believed. Okay? So it should not be that. It should not be that I'm going to throw these arrows and God's decision will be shown to me through these arrows. That is not a good thing. And that is not allowed. Now, if a person is ambivalent between two choices and they're not able to, decide which one is clearly better than the other, then in this case, what can you do? So you make istikhara and you make istishara. Okay, two things to help you make better decisions, which is to consult Allah and to consult people. And when you consult people, you consult two types of people. Those who know you and those who know the matter. Okay, so let's say that it's a job. You have an option of, two types of engineering jobs. So you made istikhara. You're like, okay, I need some more. I'm feeling good towards both. I can't decide. So then you would talk to people that know you, and they might tell you that, hey, this one job is offered at nighttime, and you always have sleep problems. Okay, now this is an extra data point that helps you that I shouldn't take the one that makes me work at nighttime because I already have sleep problems. It's going to mess me up. Or it's, let's say even that is all equal, then you talk to people who know those jobs, those engineering fields, and they will tell you that, okay, this one is better or this one is better. What are the pros and cons of these? And you have to end up eventually, obviously, if they are, after all of this, they are still like seem equally good to you, then just take anyone and say Bismillah. That's all you can do. But don't assign the decision of God to a coin toss. That's what basically this ayah means. That's basically what the brother mentioned, which is a raffle. Raffle that, he mentioned the hadith that if the people knew the reward of praying in the first line, they would draw lots. What that means is that if the people knew, they would want the first line so bad that they would say, okay, we're going to enter our name into a drawing, and then whoever name is picked out, that person will get to pray in the first line. Otherwise, people wouldn't give up their right. That's how important that is. Anyways, let's move on. All of these are ridsum min amal shaitan. These are all evil of shaitan's handiwork. Now, to your point, the thing about shaitan is that shaitan, one of the tricks of shaitan is to make things fuzzy. To make the haram dressed into something nice wrapper. Okay, very nice and fancy that attracts you. And sometimes gets clear. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said in one hadith, he said, Al-halalu bayyin wal-haramu bayyin. That halal is clear and haram is clear. وَبَيْنَهُمَا umur. And between them are matters mushtabihat. These are the doubtful matters. So he says, whoever stayed away from the doubtful matters has protected his deen. So when the line is fuzzy, it's better to stay completely away to that which is 100% halal without any doubt. In order to not. Now, if you think that, no, I'm an expert in this matter, I can go into more detail, you can. And if you do, you risk falling into haram. But, there's a debate between the scholars that are doubtful matters halal or haram. And they said that, well, if you cannot prove it's haram, then it's halal. Some said, well, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever stayed away from doubtful matters has protected his religion. It means that they are haram. And others have said, well, the Prophet called them doubtful matters. They are doubtful matters. Just as a protection for yourself, stay away from them. So he says, Ritsum min amal shaitan. These are all evil of the amal of shaitan. Fajtanibu. So shun them. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. So that you may be successful. This is the third ayah in the series of ayat which came on the issue of alcohol. And this ayah completely prohibited alcohol. Up until now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gradually was weaning the people off of the habit of drinking alcohol. And here, when this ayah came down, the people were ready. The people were ready, and it is said that the people took their containers of alcohol and they smashed them into the streets of Medina, and the alcohol flowed in the streets of Medina on that day. So this was the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as opposed to, for example, the America's experiment with prohibition. And America's experiment with prohibition, when the law of prohibition was passed, which is alcohol is forbidden, alcohol consumption went up instead of it going down. And the amount of money that was made in smuggling alcohol is unbelievable. Allah says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانِ. What does shaitan want to do with all of these different things? He wants to أَن يُوقِعَ بَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ فِي الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. He wants to stir up hostility and hatred between you with intoxicants and gamblings. Gambling. Because these are things where it brings out the worst of humanity when you're on the downside. And there are so many people, even, sometimes convert, revert brothers and sisters, they come and they say that, my parents are they are alcoholics, and they are very nasty when they're drunk, and they're drunk all the time. So what is my role towards them? And that's a very difficult problem to solve. And when they are drunk, they're also not politically correct. So meaning they will say the nastiest things to them about being Muslim and about covering their head and all of those type of things. So these are things that basically Shaitan uses these to create enmity and hatred and hostility between people. Same thing with gambling. Gambling is fun until you lose. And then you lose again. And then you lose again. And then you lose again. And one of the things that whenever there is, for example, murder investigations, and there is some sort of motive needs to be searched, if a person is found to be a gambler, then this is something which serves as possible reasons as to why this person could be the murderer. Also, if a person is, getting vetted for background check for these, government positions, FBI will interview them and they will ask them, do you gamble? If that person is a gambler, they cannot have them in sensitive positions, because that person, when they're losing, they might offer some key secrets, that if I lose, I'll tell you such and such, because they are desperate at that point to somehow have another chance. Because the gambler who lost like 20 times, he thinks the next time I'm just right there. I'm about to win and I will win it all back. And of course, this can lead to a lot of problems. And, other places, people go, they gamble, and sometimes they say, well, you're not paying what you said you're going to pay if you lose. So they actually detain them. They have like gangsters with them. They detain them, and they send a message to their family, and they say, if you don't bring us this much money, then we're going to do such and such to your man. And people are desperately running, trying to save their man, from these type of things. So these are things that cause a lot of problems in society. And this is the goal of Shaitan. Now, the question that you asked is that, what if this problem is not seemingly causing enmity and hostility? What if it is not? And here's the thing. Whenever insurance companies, when they offer you that $12 thing, or pay $22 extra and protect your travel plans and this and that, they are not doing that with the intention to give you the money. Okay? They have done their calculations, and they have probabilities factored in, and their intention is not to give you your money back. Their intention is to keep your money. And how many people have ever had the experience when you bought some extended warranty, and then you called them when you had a problem, and they said, sorry, you don't qualify. Okay, so many people have that. So it looks so innocent, but here's the thing. When you open the door for something small, eventually an elephant comes through that door. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that these are tricks of Shaitan. These are tricks of Shaitan. And of course, what we should do is we should come up with different ways. There's something called funeral insurance. Some people, they basically pay a certain amount. There are some communities, they came up with a halal alternative for a funeral insurance. And what they did is that they said, everybody, you sign up and you pay $10 a month into a donation pool that we have created in the masjid. And anyone in the community who, alhamdulillah, we are very blessed that we don't have to deal with that problem in this community. But in that place, where it costs a lot of money, they say anybody who dies will take care of them from this money. And it will basically cover, you just pay $10 a month, and it's a community cooperative plan basically. That it will cover the janaza, $16,000 for a janaza. The grave itself is like $12,000 and $4,000 in funeral home services and this and that. So people basically, they have to worry about these type of things. So Islam teaches us, you have all these haram options, try to think, be creative, and come up with halal alternatives of that. And there are lots of ways of coming up with halal alternatives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to be creative. When we give up, we basically accept the haram as the norm. When we don't give up, we say, what can I do to change it up? And Islamic economy is very innovative in the way that it solves problems in a halal way, staying away from interest, staying away from insurance, staying away from gharar, and these type of things. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all proper understanding. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.